So this woman cons a whole lot of people by selling magic cheese? Now they call the woman Madame Gil. And Madame Gil's around 64 when this story starts, and she's living in France. And Madame Gil really loves money. She loves money so much that she'll con whoever she can to get it. It seems like she's been scamming people for years. And one day in 2006, she comes up with her wildest con yet. She sort of just shows up in Chile, and she starts holding business conferences there all across the country because she claims she knows how to make everyone super rich. And she's a good salesman, so all these people show up and listen to her. And what she's selling, people are calling magic cheese. It's actually a special powdered culture that allows people to make their own high-quality cheese at home. I guess the cheese is kind of like white and creamy, like a yogurt. Let me interrupt the story real quick. If you're online without a VPN right now, you're basically leaving your front door wide open with a sign that says, "Come steal my data." And that is why I use Surfshark. Surfshark hides your IP, it encrypts your data, and it makes sure creepy advertisers, or worse, can't follow you around online. So nobody, not trolls, not hackers, not even your internet provider can track what you're doing online. Plus, you can jump to servers in over 100 countries. Want to watch a show that's only streaming in the UK? Easy. Switch your location with one click and boom, you're in London. Suddenly, that video not available in your region problem, gone. And if you're like me, researching, live streaming, or even traveling, Surfshark protects all your devices with one account. So your phone, your laptop, your tablet, they're all covered. It's basically an online invisibility cloak. Not to mention, they've got a strict no logs policy, which means they don't track or store what you do ever. So go to surfshark.com RWJ or use the code RWJ at checkout to get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. And thanks to Surfshark for keeping this channel safe and keeping me from getting doxxed. Now, why would anyone want to make their own cheese at home? Well, according to Madame Gil, this special high-quality cheese is actually used in fancy French beauty creams. And like famous celebrities like Michael Jackson use these beauty creams all the time. They don't use the bullshit creams that the rest of us peons use. They use the kinds with the special cheese in it. And according to Madame Gil, big makeup companies like L'Oreal are just dying to buy this stuff up. Which is stupid. If L'Oreal wanted to put cheese in their face creams, why wouldn't L'Oreal just make the cheese themselves? But whatever. So she tells all these people that they have the opportunity to be rich. All they have to do to get started is pay her the equivalent of $400 US for this magic cheese powder. And as ridiculous as this whole thing sounds, it actually works. Lots of Chilean people believe her and they start buying up this cheese powder hoping that they're eventually going to make some money. And so word starts getting around about this new exciting opportunity. And soon, Madame Gil's business conferences are packed with people. Now, Madame Gil, she isn't new to this whole scam business. She has a long history of running cons on people. And she's savvy enough to know that the best way to lure people in and get them to trust her is if she makes it seem low risk. So she starts giving the first cheese kits away to her early customers for free. And people love this. They take the free kits and I assume they all go home and they start making all this yogurt cheese. And so it continues to snowball from here. Madame Gil is selling more and more cheese-making kits and she keeps recruiting new people and every new recruit means another kit sold. And the sad thing is, she's targeting very vulnerable people. Mostly targeting poor villagers and women living in poverty who buy into this grift because they're hoping to change their lives. And if that isn't sleazy enough, here's where an even bigger scam comes in. So all these people start making cheese at home. And Madame Gil will approach them and she'll be like, "Let me sell that cheese to big cosmetic companies for you and I'll give you your cut of the profit." And I guess people are like, "Sure." So she then takes the cheese from them and she doesn't sell it because who in the world's gonna buy that shit? She just stores it in a warehouse. But she later pays the people a little bit of money and she says, here's your cut. So where does she get the money to pay them from? Well, she gets them from new people buying cheese kits. So she has successfully turned this weird fake cheese-making scam into one big Ponzi scheme. But the Chilean people, they don't know that. They think that they successfully sold a bunch of cheddar and that Madame Gil's business plan actually works. So they, in turn, buy even more cheese kits from her. Not only that, but she also urges the villagers to go back to their respective villages and recruit their friends and recruit their neighbors and their family members into this cheese-making business opportunity. And like any good MLM scam, she's offering rewards and gifts for people who sign up other people. And they do. The villagers have now had a taste of success and now they're hooked. They recruit their friends and their family and anyone they know. Sometimes they'll sell their possessions, sometimes they'll even sell their cattle, sometimes they'll sell their own car. They will put themselves into debt just to keep that little bit of cheese money coming in. And by this point, Madame Gil has scammed around 5,500 Chileans into buying into her bogus cheese-making kits. And overall, she makes, are you ready for this? The equivalent of around 17 million US dollars. Meanwhile, all the cheese that these people are producing that Madame Gil is pretending to pay them for, well, since it was never actually going to be used as fancy face cream, all this cheese is just piling up in warehouses. And we're not talking about like a few blocks of cheese here and there. We're talking about massive amounts, tons and tons of this worthless, stank-ass cheese that nobody wants just sitting there growing mold or whatever on it. But the thing is, no one's investigating this scam because everyone still believes that Madame Gil is selling it all to L'Oreal and other big cosmetic companies. Here's the thing though. Eventually, like with all Ponzi schemes, she runs out of new people to recruit and there aren't enough people buying new cheese kits, so she can't pay off the original cheese-making customers, which means the structure of her con starts to collapse. And so, at some point, Madame Gil packs up her things and she quietly takes her 17 million US dollars equivalent and she moves back to France and she lives a good life. While she leaves all this cheese piled up in warehouses in Chile, all spoiled and worthless and definitely not edible. And a lot of the villagers who sold their cattle or their cars or even quit their job to stay in the game, they're starting to realize that they aren't making any money from this. So some of them try to reach her for an explanation, and they're like calling, but no one is answering. Madame Gil is long gone. Her offices in Chile are just straight up closed. And so the Chilean people get super pissed. And at this point, they know they were scammed, and they're not gonna let this slide. So they go to police, and a lot of them file formal complaints, and so police start investigating. And around the same time, reporters from a Chilean TV show called Contacto, which seems like an investigative reporting type show, they get word that this woman from France scammed all these Chilean people. So they start investigating the hell out of this story. They interview a bunch of victims, they track down one of the original cheese kits, and they try making some themselves. They go to one of the warehouses, and they find 20,000 tons worth of cheese products just rotting away. And so eventually, they go all the way to Paris, and they actually track down Madame Gil. But of course, she refuses to speak to them. She probably knows they're trying to call her out. And so they turn their findings over to Chilean police, and Chilean police then contact Interpol. However, the French police also open their own investigation, and they eventually conclude what we all already know, that Madame Gil is a con artist. So in 2008, they find her in Nice, and there, bam, they arrest her. And I don't have a mugshot, but here's what she looks like in real life. And so she's eventually convicted of money laundering and fraud, and she gets sentenced to 6 years in prison. And I guess she never learned her lesson because in 2018, she's arrested in Belgium for a completely different type of recruitment-based pyramid scheme. And there, she gets convicted and she gets 8 years in prison.